Assalamualaikum and hi. Topic 7 is about gathering material. Gathering materials for a speech is like gathering information for any other project. There are many resources available if you take advantage of them. You can interview people with specialized knowledge. You can do research on the internet or in the library. Sometimes you can even use yourself as a resource. Throughout this chapter, we will learn about using your own knowledge and experience, doing library research, searching the internet, interviewing, and finally, tips for doing research. Everybody is an expert on something, whether it is video games, childcare, or backpacking. As we saw in chapter 5, we often speak best about subjects with which we are familiar. This is why many teachers encourage students to capitalize on their own knowledge and experience in developing speech topics. When you choose a topic from your own experience, you may be tempted to depersonalize it by relying solely on facts and figures from books and the internet. Such outside information is almost always necessary, but supplementing it with the personal touch can really bring your speeches to life. Even in this age of the internet, you will get some of the information for your speeches from the library. It contains many resources to help you find what you need. The librarians are experts in their own field, trained in library use and research methods. If you have a question, don't hesitate to ask a librarian. He or she can help you find your way, locate sources, even track down a specific piece of information. Then you have the catalog. It lists all the books, periodicals, and other resources owned by the library. Although there are many different computer systems for library catalogs, most allows you to search for books by author, title, subject, or keyword. The catalogs also tells you whether the book you want is available or is already checked out. The key to finding the book on the shelves is the call number. Once you have the call number, all you have to do is find the right section of the shelves and retrieve your book. Reference works are often kept in a part of the library called the reference section. Though some are now available electronically, in either cases, the right reference work can save your hours of time by putting at your fingertips a wealth of information that might be difficult to locate elsewhere. The major kinds of reference works you are likely to use for your speeches are encyclopedias, yearbooks, quotations books, and biographical aids. Newspaper and periodical databases allow you to locate articles in thousands of publications. You just type a subject in your database's search box and citations for articles on your subject, and it will appear on screen. In some cases, you may get an abstract of the article in addition to the full article. But just keep in mind that the abstract is only a summary of the article. At colleges and universities around the world, experts are researching almost every aspect of the natural world and human society. Their work appears in respected peer-reviewed journals. Academic databases make those journals available to you. The best place to find scholarly research is in one of the following academic databases. Because each searches across different academic disciplines, you should be able to find what you need in one of the databases. The internet has been called the world's biggest library. But unlike a library, the internet has no central information desk, no librarians, no catalog, and no reference section. You can unearth a great deal of information on the internet, but you cannot always find the same range and depth as in a good library. This is why experts advise that you use the internet to supplement, not to replace library research. Search engines are the key to finding materials on the internet. There are numerous search engines, but the most widely used by far is Google, which provides access to billions of web pages. If you simply search for college cheerleading, you will come up with hundreds of articles and images explaining about the topic. Instead, you should narrow your search by adding the quote and unquote symbols. You may also add another keywords to get the most narrowing articles and image search. Examples given are you combining two keywords which are college cheerleading and sport injury, and both keywords use quote unquote symbols to really make you get the narrower search. Search engines are extremely helpful, but they are not the only vehicle for finding information. The internet also contains a wealth of specialized resources created to help you find useful information. One of the great strengths of the internet as a research tool is the access it provides to government documents and publication. Another thing is with Wikipedia. With more than 5.5 million articles in English alone, Wikipedia is the biggest encyclopedia in human history. Each month, the site serves over 15 billion pages, making it the fifth most visited web page in the world. But is Wikipedia a reliable source of information? When you do research in a library, everything you find has been evaluated in one way or another before it gets to you. The internet, of course, is a very different story. Anyone with a computer and access to the internet can share his or her opinions with a discussion group, publish an electronic newsletter, or create a personal web page. You need to evaluate the internet documents you are researching by evaluating its authorship, sponsorship, and recency. In authorship, is the author of the web document you are assessing clearly identified? If so, what are his or her qualifications? Is the author an expert on the topic? Can her or his data and opinions be accepted as objective and unbiased? Just as you should not cite a book or magazine article without identifying the author and his or her credentials, so you should not cite an electronic work in the absence of this information. Second, sponsorship. Many web documents are published by businesses, government agencies, public interest groups, and the like rather than by individual authors. In such cases, you must judge whether the sponsoring organization is impartial enough to cite in the speech. Is the organization objective in its research and fair minded in its statement? Is it economically unbiased with regard to the issue under discussion? Does it have a history of accuracy and non partisanship? And finally, is recency. One of the advantages of using the internet for research is that it often has more recent information than you can find in print sources. But just because a document is on the internet does not mean its facts and figures are up to the minute. The best way to determine the recency of an internet document is to look for a copyright date, publication date, or date of last revision at the top or bottom of the document. Most people think of interviewing in terms of job interviews or conversations with celebrity. But there's another kind of interview, the research, or what we call as investigative interview. The outcome of most research interview is decided by how well the interviewer prepares. Here are 5 steps you should take ahead of time to ensure a successful outcome. First is define the purpose of the interview. You have done internet and library research about current issues in college athletics, let's say, and have a good grasp of the major points of view. But you still have many questions about the situation at your school. So you decided that the only way to get answers is to interview someone associated with the athletic program. In that decision, you have begun to formulate a purpose for the interview. Second is to decide whom to interview. There are several possibilities, but you elect to start at the top with the athletic director. That may seem a bit presumptuous, but in dealing with administrative organizations, it is usually best to go to the leaders first. They are likely to have a broad understanding in the issue. Third, because the athletic director is a busy person, you work out a plan for setting up the interview. Knowing that it's easier to brush off someone over email or the telephone than in person, you go to the athletic office to request for the interview. Fourth is to decide whether to record the interview. The major advantage of recording an interview is that it gives you an exact record you can check later for direct quotes and important facts. Even if you record the interview, however, you should take notes by hand in case of technical malfunction. And finally is to prepare your question. You now face the most important of your pre-interview tasks. Okay, you should devise questions that are sensible, intelligent, and meaningful. Every interview is unique. Because the session will seldom go exactly as you plan, you need to be alert and flexible. Here are several tips for you that can take to make things proceed smoothly. First is to dress appropriately and be on time. The athletic director has a busy schedule and is doing you a favor by agreeing to an interview, so you show up on time. Since the interview is a special occasion, you dress appropriately. This is one way of confirming that you regard the interview as serious business. Next is to repeat the purpose of the interview. The athletic director invites you into the office. You exchange a few introductory remarks. Now, before you plunge into your questions, you take a moment to restate the purpose of the interview. You are more likely to get clear, helpful answers if your subject knows why you are following a certain line of questioning. Third is to set up the recorder if you are using one. If your subject has agreed to being recorded, keep one principle in mind. The recorder should be as casual and inconspicuous as possible. Most cell phones now offer applications for audio recording, giving you an easy way to capture the interview. Next, keep the interview on track. Your goal in the interview is to get answers to the questions you have prepared. Suppose, however, that is answering one of your questions, the athletic director brings up an important point that is not covered on your list of questions. Rather than ignoring the point, you decide to pursue the new issue. You pose a couple of questions about it, get helpful answers, then return to your prepared questions. Next, listen carefully. During the interview, you listen attentively to the athletic director's answers. When you don't understand, ask. Chances are the athletic director has been misquoted more than once in the press, so he or she will be happy to oblige. And finally, don't overstay your welcome. Keep within the stipulated time period for the interview. Unless your subject clearly wants to prolong the session, when the interview is over, you thank the athletic director for taking the time to talk to you. Although the interview is over, the interviewing process is not. You must now review and transcribe your notes. When you leave the athletic director's office, the interview is fresh in your mind. You know what the cryptic comments and scrawls in your notes mean, but as time passes, the detail will become hazy. In reviewing your notes, try to concentrate on two things: discovering the main points that emerge during the interview and pulling out specific information that might be useful in your speech. And second, once you settle on the most important ideas and information from the interview, you should transcribe that material so it is in the same format as the rest of your research notes. By putting all your research notes in a consistent format, you can arrange and rearrange them easily when you start to organize your speech. Few people regard doing research as one of life's great joys, but there are ways to make it less tedious and more productive. Here are 4 ways that help guaranteed to help. First is to start early. The longer you wait, the more problems you will encounter. No matter what kind of research you do, you can be sure of one thing: it will always take longer than you expect. Second is to make a preliminary bibliography. In your research, you will run across the titles of books, magazine articles, internet documents, and so on that look as if they might contain helpful information about your speech topic. Enter each item you find in your preliminary bibliography, even though you don't know whether you will use it in your speech. Third is to take notes efficiently by taking plenty of notes, recording the notes in a consistent format, make a separate entry for each note, and distinguish among direct quotations, paraphrases, and your own ideas. Finally, is to think about your materials as you research. If you think about what you are finding in your research, you will see your topic just a little bit differently with each note you take. You will find new relationships, develop new questions, and explore new angles. You will, in short, begin to write the speech in your head even as you do the research. There are many resources you can use when gathering information for a speech. If you have personal experience or above average knowledge about the topic, you can use yourself as a resource. Most of the time, however, you will need outside information, which you can get in the library, on the internet, or by interviewing people with specialized information. That's all for chapter 7. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.